Okay, there's a song by Jackson Browne that talks about running on empty, and it talks about how you just go through your life constantly going and going and going, and you do it because that's the thing you have to do to cope and survive. I've been running on empty for a long time, and there's a scene in Forrest Gump where Forrest starts running, and all of a sudden he stops and he says, "I'm tired. I want to go home." So at this point right now, I'm just tired and just want to get this out and get over it, because it's something that's been hidden for a long time. When you're in a stressful situation, like people that are into combat, you suffer from what's called post-traumatic stress disorder. The whole idea here to survive is to take all those things that you've gone through, you stick them back in the back of your mind, and all the emotions and all the anger and that stuff, and you close the window, you lock the window, and you close the drapes. That's just to keep everything in so you can cope. What happens is, once in a while, there's a physical trigger that comes up that triggers those emotions, and it brings things out, and all that crap comes out, and then you manifest your behavior based on your coping mechanisms that you had. And I just want to get this out, get it over with, so I don't have to deal with it anymore. So it's a little emotional, but that's how I cope. When the things come back, I get upset, I get tired, and I cry, and then half hour I'll be okay. So. I was born in Salina, Kansas. Actually, my mom was from Pennsylvania, where my dad at the time was serving as a brother in the Maryhood of the Whole Order, and they met in Pennsylvania. They came back to Kansas, got married. Then I was born. We moved back to Pennsylvania. So it was back and forth between Pennsylvania and Kansas. So I was brought up in kind of a rural area, poor rural area in central Kansas, and kind of an affluent area in Pennsylvania. Finally, after getting settled in Kansas, I went to something like 16 different schools before I finally graduated from high school. Then I went to junior college. Grades weren't too good, so I was drafted. I grew up with this message on one hand of from the farm life, appreciating life and nature and that sort of thing, and that there's a certain way you're supposed to live and get along and respect people. Then, but at the same time, the media was giving these messages of, we're all going to end up going to a war. We have to be heroes when we go there. Watched all these movies from John Wayne and Audie Murphy, and it was kind of drilled into our heads that one of these days we're going to go to war and we needed to be heroes. And I also lived in Salina, where it was a very strong military town with a big Air Force base outside of it. So I was always around that sort of thing. It just seemed to me that was a natural thing to do. When I grew up, I was going to go into the war and be a hero. Yeah. I see it now as propaganda. Cartoons we used to watch was Popeye, who was always beating up Brutus, who was one of our enemies, or Rocky and Bullwinkle were always trying to stop the Russian Orson, Karloff, and Boris and Natasha, and the music we had, the movies we had, always had war as being attractive, and nobody, in the old days when it was black and white kind of stuff, they didn't show people getting their heads blown off and stuff like they have now. The graphics just weren't there. So we grew up this thing as, it's going to be tough, but we're going to make it. It's just. we used to play war games around the house and chase each other and shoot each other, and then we'd get up and think it was kind of fun and games. Again, I always thought that that's what was going to happen, that I would go in, and my uncle was in the Marines, but he was peacetime Marines, and I always thought he looked pretty good in his little fancy uniform, and I always thought it would be cool to run around in a uniform like that, having people salute me and me, that kind of stuff. When I finally got my draft notice, I was filled with, I was scared, but I was relieved that finally it's happened, and that I'm going to be kind of forced into doing this thing. I was excited. I was really kind of numb at the same time, and I realized that my life was going to be put on hold for a while to go off into this great adventure. I'll never forget this. Right after I got drafted, I was searching my soul to know exactly. I didn't have any options. I didn't know the options. I didn't know anything about COs, conscientious objectors. I didn't know anything about the peace movement. None of the rallies about anti-war things were on the newspaper in Kansas City. They just didn't cover it. We didn't know that there was big rallies all over the country against the war. We didn't know people were against the war. So I went to my parish priest, and I didn't know that this Polish priest, who was Polish, let's say Polish, was strongly against communism. He says, it's your patriotic duty to go. You got to go stop communism. So I believed him. So I went in and with the idea this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and let's end up in Vietnam. I had the opportunity, but I didn't have any desire. I figured, I'll see how it works out. If I get drafted, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. Went to the reception station after I got drafted where they give you a physical. And then we were in this line, and this little old lady come up, and the lady was doing the paperwork, and she looked like my grandmother. And they were taking, this guy goes to the Marines, next guy Army, next Marines, and then Army. The guy in front of me got to go Army, and she took one look at me and says, "You don't want to go to the Marines, do you?" I said, "No, ma'am, I don't." She says, "Okay, you're going Army." So I felt a little relieved after that. It wasn't an option to me to sign up, but it was the idea of I'm going to go with whatever comes my way. I drafted in 1968, and they sent me to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri for 8 weeks of basic training, which is like a big gym class. We spent more time picking up cigarette butts and trash and marching and singing songs about Jody, who is, you know who Jody is. Yeah. That's the guy that's at home taking your girlfriend while you're off saving the world. We sang songs about how evil the Vietnamese were and that we should go kill them. And pretty soon, after a while, we started thinking that they were bad guys. We didn't spend much time on a rifle range. I didn't know anything about the incoming rounds, ground attacks. I didn't even know what a VC looked like. Moving targets that we had were little silhouettes, so it just wasn't much of a training. It was basically pretty much a joke. 8 weeks of basic training, then they sent directly to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which was 8 weeks of advanced training, more saluting, more police calls. We spent time picking up trash and police call. Every once in a while we'd go to the firing range and we'd fire at something far away. The training was just pretty basic and not very good. And then after those 8 weeks I got a couple weeks off, and then December 15th, 1968, they put me on a plane with about 100 other guys and flew us into Vietnam. And the whole thing was that the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, were being supplied from North Vietnam, and all the supplies had to come down a trail right on the Laos-Cambodian border, and it was all directed towards Saigon. If they could take the capital, they felt that they could take the rest of the country. And we were the last stepping stone for them to get into Saigon. So we're in a small fire support base. It was 10 miles from the Cambodian border, about 100 miles from Saigon. Oh God, I'll never forget first getting off the plane in Saigon, and then they flew to Ton Son, and I go, this is surreal. This is not happening. It was almost like Twilight Zone. It was the strangest feeling I've ever had. Being in a place, you could feel the tension, you could feel the hate and the violence. It was just everywhere. And I was starting to get a little nervous and a little leery about it. First night in country, Still haven't given us a weapon. We had spent the day on police call picking stuff up. And it took us to this little inn club, gave us a couple of beers. Here I am, 20. I don't drink yet. I just had 2 beers and I got a little buzz going. And we had incoming rounds. Basic training, advanced training. They never told us what to do when you have incoming rounds. I didn't know what happened when rounds landed. And all these other guys knew what they're doing was diving into this bunker. I was the last one in. Well, I get in there, there's rats everywhere. So there's bombs going on all around me, and I'm thinking, I screwed up here. I'm in big trouble. We took a convoy. Again, they never told us about convoys, what could happen on convoys. They didn't tell us that usually they hit the first truck or the last truck and then try to get everybody in the middle. So I wasn't smart enough to be scared yet. I finally get to my fire sport base. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's no towns around. There's just this big old open field with a bunch of dirt around it, mines around it. We have about 100 guys there. First guy I saw was a guy from Topeka. He said, you know all that stuff they taught you at home? It's not going to work. Just forget it. I go, oh, great. Okay. I'm not mechanically inclined. I'm not a very good shot. What the hell am I doing here? It's interesting because I talked to someone else that's getting ready to be deployed to Afghanistan. He's an artillery, went to Fort Sill. That's the exact same thing they told him to. We weren't very close. You didn't get close to somebody else because you just never knew when something was going to happen, so you kept to yourself. My only objective was to get myself home in one piece and not get somebody else killed. So, there was a little bit of interaction going on. There was 10 of us that slept on a small bunker underground. The first fire support base that I was in, our room that we were in was about 15 feet long, and it consisted of ammo bunkers on boxes on one side, a little roof. The back end was sandbagged. The front was open. We threw a tarp off it. We had cots, one right after the other, and that's where we slept. When we weren't in there, we were out in the open. We had no place to stay. We put all our belongings in a can about this big and went about our business. You get up in the morning, you clean the gun, you go on fire missions, you eat lunch, you clean the gun, have fire missions, you'd wait. You'd wait for them to hit you, or you'd wait for us to hit them. And you do that day after day after day, and it gets a little tedious. So. And there wasn't anything we could do for entertainment but sit there and wait for a letter to come from home. And I wasn't a Dear John. Got Dear John about 8 months into the tour, where I got this letter, and this girl said, see, I'm dating somebody else right now. That's the thing you had to look forward to. So morale was pretty low. When you go into base camp, they have clubs you can go into. You can get, or the PX, where you can go get beer, liquor, and that sort of thing. That was mostly what people did. There's other things that people got into, but we couldn't do that because we were on the base piece. It was the most important gun because it was highly calibrated. So if we were firing close to our guys, they used our gun because they knew exactly where the rounds would go. And we had the best gun in the battery. So we had to stay straight. We had to be on time, and just everything had to be just right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there was no jacking around. While we were constantly under the pressure of being attacked, it could be in the middle of the day. We'd take rockets, mortar rounds, RPGs, small arms. We snuck outside the wire one day to go swim into this B-52 crater, and it was filled with, it was nasty, but it was hot, so we went swimming. The next day we went out swimming again, there was booby traps all around it. So with that kind of thing, you had to watch exactly what's happening. So you're on vigil all the time. Another time we finally made it to base camp, we went to a cafeteria. We ate about 100 meters away from the cafeteria blew up. Someone pulled a tray out from the rack, and it was a booby trap, and just, the whole place went up in smoke. If we'd been there 5 minutes earlier, we would have been in there blown up. Our infantry would go out, and they would get contact, they would pull back, and they'd call us to fire in their support. While we're doing that, we have to worry about the VC and our NVA watching us do that, and they would take pot shots at us. On artillery, you've got the big gun. One guy's a gunner, an assistant gunner. I did all the different jobs. I was chief of section. Firing was when the cannon goes off and you go blow stuff up that you can't see blown up. Unless it's a ground attack, you see them coming at you, and and you start, blowing everybody up that's in front of you. But combat is just, it comes in different forms when you're in artillery and that sort of thing. I never saw anybody I shot. I saw what happened after we shot them with, people with brains all over the ground or their guts all over the ground, but actually coming up and shooting them. And at night you can't see anything in front of you. It's just the scariest thing in the world. So every day was just waiting for something to happen, waiting for them to attack us. We could attack them. That was for this first 6 months, and then things started to change after that. I was on ambush one night, which is a whole other story, and their idea of what they would do is they'd come out and take our claymores, turn them around, and go out and make a noise. We'd blow the claymore mine, and that would blow everybody up. I'm sitting on ambush out there, and this guy wakes up and says, "They're out there." And I can't hear a thing because I've been in artillery for 6 months. And so he goes back to sleep, so I'm up there trying to strain to see and wondering if I should blow it. If I blow it, that means they know our position and we're screwed. And I looked out to my left, and there was this tree with a bunch of bushes around it, and I am so scared, literally. These bushes started running around the tree, and the tree got up and left. And that's how scared I was. I just sat back and tried to be as quiet as I could from then on. That's the way it was the whole 365 days. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Just a constant threat. We had a ground attack one night, and I had this dream earlier that this was going to happen, and they were overrunning our areas, and they were coming to the wire, and they dropped smoke or gas on us, and we had to use gas masks to get out of this whole thing, and it took us 36 hours to repel this ground attack, and they hit us again the next night. So we weren't ready for this at all. Then military intelligence says nothing's going to happen, and then the next thing you know, they're trying to overrun our position. That's the night that I'm hiding behind a sandbag. The RPG skips over and goes off and blows up the outhouse, and there's crap everywhere. Come that far from me turning into grease, there would have been nothing left. Another time we went to military intelligence says we should take 2 of our guns. There's 6 guns in this thing, our basic group. We take 2 guns out in the middle of nowhere. It's a secret mission, okay? Well, we get up in the middle of the night. We go out to get to this secret mission, and the prostitutes and the coke boys are out there waiting for us. And this lifer tells me to put this artillery piece, which weighs 2,000 pounds, in the cemetery. And I says, we can't do this. It's cemetery. He says, yeah, go ahead. So we put it on a grave mound. They have to bury the dead above the ground because the water table's so low. So I said, you can't do this because, after the first round, the tire's going to sink into the grave. That's pretty bad itself. Well, first round goes off, gun sinks axle deep into the grave. I'm sitting there looking at this guy's grave. We're taking rockets in coming from the village, and I wanted to kill this lifer that told us to do this. Finally got it out. We returned fire, and for the next 2 weeks, it was just, it was stupid because this first lieutenant didn't know what the hell he was doing. During this ground attack, remember, we're all supposed to be heroes, okay? We grew up with this idea that nothing's going to happen to us. We're invincible. They hit us really, really hard, and I thought sure we were all going to die. And one of our buddies was out. He'd gotten drunk, which I don't know how he got the booze, but he was staggering around out there, got hit, and he's laying out there moaning. And he's just right outside the door, and all this stuff's going off. You can hear it exploding out there, and I froze. I thought, yeah, here's my chance, and I couldn't do it. And it just sucks because you think you're gonna do something, you can't do it, and it just blows your whole life away. I have to spend the next 40 years trying to figure that one out, trying to deal with that crap. I think it was that ground attack that really pushed me over the edge. Knowing that, you're within a blink of an eye of dying, and you're 20 years old, you can't drink, you can't vote, you've only had a couple dates, life sucks, and you're gonna die. And it was, and after that, I'd only been in country 2 months when this happened. I still didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. And after that, it was just all I wanted to do, one day at a time, survive so I get the hell out of there, heck, come home and forget that ever happened. Wow. I was scared because I didn't know how I was going to be able to cope back home. Because I learned how to survive there. How am I going to survive back home? And so I was relieved I was going to almost re-enlisted, and I was going to go for another tour right there. I didn't want to go home. I felt safe there after a while because I knew what I was doing. But then I was just, you got to get out of here. You got to go home. Because I actually, instead of most people when they go back home, they have to go someplace else in the military for like 6 months before their 2 years is up. But in my case, I was getting completely out, and I just want to go home and forget the whole thing. We had seen a few of the protests, and we heard the news about, guys that blew people up and did some pretty bad stuff. We had a ground attack. That ground attack, one of the VC had tuhoid. That means he gave up, and the guy stabbed him right in the heart, cut his heart out right there because all of his buddies were there. So we saw some pretty bad stuff, but nothing. I'm not sure why everybody was really upset with us, but when I came home, they figured out not to make us really obvious that it's 1969 and everybody's hair is real long and we have no hair. It's been cut all off. We landed in Oakland. I got processed out. They let me out at 1 o'clock in the morning and said, "See you." I'm completely out of the military. I have $800 in my pocket. I'm in a war zone for a year, and there was nobody there to pick us up. They said, "See ya." Walked out of the building. It's a big size of warehouse, and there was just nobody there. And there was 30 of us sitting around. What the hell are we supposed to do now? So everybody's calling a cab. Luckily, my sister lived not far away. She picked me up and took me back to her apartment, and I bagged up all my stuff that was green, put it in a trash bag, threw it away. And except for my uniform. I had to have that to get home. That's all I had. Got to the airport in San Francisco, and I had to buy my own plane ticket home. Got in the airport, and I'm walking through there with the little stuff I had left, and these people were pulling their kids off to the side and would turn their back on me, like I had done something really, really wrong. I didn't see it that way, but they did, and it was just eerie. Got on the plane, nobody would talk to me because I knew where I'd been and what they think I had done. I guess all these stories about all these guys that had done some bad things, but I didn't do that, but I got stuck in that category. There was another unit that came into our area, and when they got there, they were all hopped up on drugs, so they blew away the front gate. They were out there smoking dope and doing all kind of stupid stuff. We didn't do that sort of thing, but a lot of us got labeled as doing a lot of bad stuff. It was really depressing. That's why when I come home, I try to hide the fact that I'd gone and didn't tell anybody I was there. That first 5 years when I came home, I had to cope. I had to learn to cope. I had to relearn how to be a civilian all over again. And nobody was helping me out. I didn't. I get letters, "Are you ready for reserves?" I don't have anything to do with the military. I bought one green shirt in the last 40 years. I can't ride behind a diesel truck because it reminds me of burning stuff that comes out of the outhouse, because that's what you had to do with it. Firecrackers turned me up, loud noises messed me up. I had 5 years just constantly relationships. I couldn't keep a relationship because I wanted to get close to someone, but I didn't have the ability to say that I love somebody because I was afraid of what was going to happen. So it took about 5 or 6 years to finally get to the point where I could cope on a regular basis. When I first came home, I went back to my old job in a paint store. I was accounts receivable. I was, doing the books, and I thought I was going to be a manager. And after about 6 months of this stuff, after you spend a year doing the things that we did, and then you go back, it wasn't exciting enough. So I went back to school. Didn't know what I wanted to do until I had this history class where the guy said some stuff about Vietnam that wasn't true. So I decided then that I was going to become a teacher and try to enlighten people about really what happened over there. When I first came home, I started working with a bunch of little kids on a wrestling program, and they weren't like adults. Adults would judge me for what I had done and where I'd been, and these kids didn't. Their parents knew I'd been there, but they didn't judge me, so they accepted me, and that was the biggest thing with this PTSD thing of acceptance. Then I started playing rugby, and these guys didn't ask me any questions. They accepted me for who I was, and through the years, it's been finally my family, my daughters, my wife. These are the people that have really helped me out, and Bishop Ward has been a safe place for me because it's been I'm able to come in here and teach and try to enlighten people about things, and I'm accepted for that sort of thing, and it's just a good safe place for me here. That's changed over the years. When this really started affecting me, it took about 5 years. I started playing rugby, and I would hunt up the biggest guy out there, and every time I got the ball, I'd hit him and try to antagonize him and hack him off so he'd beat me up. And usually after 4 concussions, a broken collarbone, 3 knee surgeries, and screwed up shoulder, that was my way of dealing with the survival guilt and this Lieutenant Dan thing, and I can't wait till my shoulder heals so I can play again next September, so I can get hurt again. I kept busy. I had a full-time job, part-time job, and I coached a wrestling team, took judo, got into sambo, started playing rugby. My time was just constantly filled, so I would have to deal with it until the injuries started holding me back, and I couldn't do that sort of thing. I got into judo and this other form of martial arts that you try to throw them down as hard as you can. You can either choke them or break their arms and legs, and I thought that was exciting. With age sets in, you just can't do that sort of thing anymore. We constantly tell people that war's the way to settle international affairs and how to make peace, and it will never work. I was in a little village talking to some of these students, and their idea of communism, they didn't even know what communism was. We go and force ideas on these people and try to take over and do things, and the violence doesn't work. One of these days we got to figure that out and come up with another way of doing it. There's hundreds of thousands of other stories. My stories, mine. Other people have other stories. I have a friend that really thought we could have won the war and that we should have gone to the war and blown the whole place up. I disagree, but everybody's going to have a different story. But the big thing is just so thankful to be here. It's such a great place. Last 2 Sundays ago, I was sitting in Mass, and all of a sudden I got this flashback. It comes from nowhere. It's the friendly fire thing. And I'm thinking, I could have killed somebody, one of our guys. I wonder if I did that. It just freaked me out. Last week I had 2 dreams. Actually, this is kind of interesting. My first dream was in 1982. That's when I first started at Ward. A football coach was in my dream, and he was the sergeant that was sending me back to Vietnam, and I cried and pleaded and says, I don't want to go back, I've already been. He says, I don't care, you're going back. And in the last 40 years, I keep having this dream where they send me back and something bad happens. This summer, they were in my front yard waiting for me to come outside. I wouldn't come outside. The first dream, the first of this week, was that we were playing rugby against these guys, and they were beating us, and we decided we were going to go kill them. I'm going to let these Vietnamese beat us. And then Tuesday, the dream was I'm in a library, and they're pushing all the books down on top of me, and I got my whole life coming down, crashing in on top of me, and it's the same Vietnamese guys that have been trying to kill me all these years. So it's a constant struggle to try to maintain it. And this post-traumatic stress is something that you have to learn to deal with and cope with. Like I said, you have to put all these feelings of anger and hatred and fear and anxiety in the back of your head. You close the window, you lock the window, you pull the drapes and hope that something doesn't click to remind you of something. Because when it does, the window comes open and all the stuff comes out with it. So each person, everybody's different. Some people I've known, never had any problems. I've had other friends that have 100% disability. They can't come out of the house without their Prozac. So it's a constant battle. But you learn to cope with it.